Earlier this week, a video posted by AKA Art caught my attention. And no, it's not because we used the same image in our thumbnails. The video was titled, "Are Battlefield 5 sales that low?" In the video, Art discusses the various bits of information scattered across the internet that suggest Battlefield 5 hasn't sold very well at all compared to the titles that have come before it. After seeing his video, I wanted to make my own and give my own opinion on the situation. I'm going to set the scene and present all the information that I can first, and then I'll give my opinion in the second half of the video. Art's video is linked down in the description, so you can go and watch it later. First of all then, let's take a look at the article that has sparked this debate. The article posted by VG Charts says that in the first week of sales, Battlefield 5 sold 1.4 million copies at retail. 834,000 were sold on the PS4, 533,000 on the Xbox One, and 37,000 on the PC. We can then compare the overall sales figure to several of the last Battlefield titles here in this list. Battlefield 3 leads the way, selling 4.68 million copies at retail in its first week, then Battlefield 1 with 2.8 million, and then Battlefield 4 with 2.72 million. Battlefield 5 sits below Battlefield Hardline in 5th position. The article purely states the statistics gathered, and it doesn't offer any explanation for perhaps why retail sales have fallen so low for Battlefield 5 compared to previous franchise entries. Now, the first key takeaway from this article has to be that it only takes into account the retail sales, physical copies of the game sold. It was reported back in November, just 1 week after Battlefield 5's launch, that physical sales of the game were down over half than that of Battlefield 1. But if you look into other games released this year and then compare those to previous entries in their respective franchises, that downward trend is actually replicated. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 physical sales were down 50% on the previous year's game, which was World War II, and were down 59% compared to Black Ops 3. Widening the scope even further, Black Ops 4 physical sales values are only around 10% of what Modern Warfare 3's were back in the day. The physical games market year on year is shrinking, as more and more players buy games digitally through their platform's respective stores, or on PC where multiple third-party websites are able to sell codes for games that can be activated across different game clients. Lots of places around the world have gained access to high-speed internet over the last 10 years, and with that removes the need to go out to a physical store, buy a physical copy of the game on a disc, and then play the game using that. Now, more and more people can simply pay the asking price, hit the download button, and within a few hours they can be playing the game without even having to leave their seat in front of their television. There are still areas of the world that don't have that robust infrastructure yet, and that's why we're still seeing physical copies being sold, but each year that number of people gets smaller and smaller. Linking directly to a drop in physical sales will be a rise in digital sales. I mean, if you look at the gaming sector as a whole, it's not getting any smaller, so those sales must be going through somewhere. In my own experience, I've been a PC gamer now since late 2011, early 2012, and I don't think at any point in that time period, up until now, have I bought a physical copy of a PC game. I wouldn't even know where to go to buy a physical disc PC game anymore. I simply load up Steam or Origin and I buy the game that I want when it's available. With that shift over to digital sales, there comes a reluctance from game developers and publishers to announce how many copies they've sold, or how many active players they have playing their games. Sony and Microsoft, who own the two console ecosystems, they don't report sales figures for games sold through their stores, and producers like EA and Ubisoft, who also own their own stores on the PC platform, they don't like to announce sales figures unless they exceed or meet expectations. Looking back to Battlefield 1, EA made quite a big noise about how many copies of that game they sold not long after launch. But I don't see that same move being made for Battlefield 5. When these big game producers have investors and shareholders to please, why would they want to announce their game has underperformed? In an age where negative press sells more so than positive press, the only thing announcing targets not being met would equal is a barrage of articles such as this one that highlight that. And something else too that likely had an effect on the physical sales numbers being lower was EA's extremely hard push towards their digital subscription services. We've got EA Access and Origin Access, and they gave players early access to Battlefield 5. EA Access on the Xbox One and Origin Access on the PC gave subscribers a 10-hour trial before the full release date of the game and gave them a 10% discount on the game if they bought it through the Xbox Store for EA Access and the Origin Store for Origin Access. Now, one step further, Origin Access Premier, for a monthly or yearly fee, gave players full access to Battlefield 5, no time restriction, a whopping 11 days before general release. Now, while you might frown upon EA for pushing their own subscription services so hard for the launch of Battlefield 5, it undoubtedly had an effect on the buying practices of consumers for this game. I myself signed up to the Origin Access Premier service purely so I could get the game early. The yearly cost extra wasn't a huge obstacle. I wanted to play the game early, so I paid for it. Furthermore, this staggered release system, although rather confusing for consumers, does play into the eagerness of gamers to play the latest games early. Having different tiers of access, different rewards for different editions, and even rewards for pre-ordering the game, EA made it quite obvious they wanted people to subscribe to their services rather than outright purchasing a copy of Battlefield 5. They did this at the expense of potentially confusing and angering some consumers who then didn't purchase the top tier entrance ticket to the game and didn't get all the benefits. So that's the situation as it stands. We have physical sales numbers for the first week on sale and not a peep from EA, Sony or Microsoft when it comes to digital sales. So what's my opinion here then? Well, purely from the general reaction to the title from the gaming community, Battlefield 5 will not have sold as well as its predecessor, Battlefield 1. EA back in 2016 was presented with the opportunity to stride ahead of its rivals when Call of Duty producer Activision announced the entry to their own franchise, Infinite Warfare. The third game in a row making use of exosuits, boost jumps and just lurid neon colours, it was so far removed from what its community wanted to see that the announcement trailer for that game became the most disliked video game trailer on YouTube ever. So when EA took to the stage a week or so later and announced Battlefield 1, leaning into a war that had yet to be explored by a AAA publisher and returning to a historical setting, people were ready to announce it as the FPS King of the Year, and the game rode an insane wave of hype thereafter. It became the most liked reveal trailer on YouTube ever. The game exceeded sales expectations and even managed to slightly buck the trend of selling more physical copies than expected. This time around, as I've spoken about on numerous occasions already, EA and DICE's marketing tactics for Battlefield 5 were just baffling. The launch trailer was completely tone-deaf, the complete lack of communication about core features that players really cared about left potential players completely confused about what kind of game it really was, and when an EA executive accused fans of being uneducated surrounding the reaction to historical inaccuracies in the game, that really put the icing on the cake. Quote, "You have two choices, either accept it or don't buy the game. I'm fine with either or." That quote will become, and already has become, a phrase that EA will struggle to shake off for the next couple of years. Gamers were told they were uneducated, and they didn't have to buy the game if they didn't like it, and it appears that's exactly what they did. Other issues, I think, fed into the apparent reduction of sales as well. One of those would be a delay in the game's launch. That likely left some players in a position where they couldn't afford to buy the game anymore, with it being closer to the Christmas shopping spree, and a delay always gives off the image that the game isn't finished. EA and DICE themselves admitted the delay was to add further polish to the game, but they only delayed it by a month. And how much work can you really do in 1 month? That suggested that it still wasn't quite finished, and despite the delay, the game still has countless bugs and issues which get talked about all the time within the active community that's playing the game. That sends a message to potential future buyers, a message that the game isn't exactly in a good position, and that leads to less players buying into it after launch. Those players who buy the game at a lower price a few months later may not be arriving now because of the state the game is currently in. And speaking of lower price, let's talk about the insane price reductions put on Battlefield 5 just 4 days after launch, dropping the price by 30, 40, 50% in some cases. I don't really think that sale had the effect that EA really wanted. In my opinion, as a gamer, looking at such an insane price drop so close to the launch of a game, that suggests to me that something isn't going well with the game. That kind of reduction would actually put me off purchasing the game, and instead push me to investigate what might be going wrong more than anything else. If potential buyers did that, they'd discover issues like the progression system not functioning properly, a roadmap of updates with content that was used as part of the marketing campaign before launch, and the potential big puller of players, Battle Royale, not launching until March. Plenty of issues under the hood that could have been used as reasons not to buy the game in its current state. Has Battlefield 5 sold fewer copies compared to Battlefield 1, the previous title, and other games that have released around it in 2018? Yes, I think we can almost be certain that that's the case. But did it sell that badly though? As bad as the internet forums and comment sections might suggest? I don't think so. I have no trouble loading up the game and getting into full servers at any time of the day or week, and I don't see a shortage of players talking about the game either, discussing the daily happenings of it, and generally supporting it. The game did a really bad job of advertising itself, and has suffered the consequences, but it's not anywhere near as bad, I think, as some players might have you believe. The issue I think DICE and EA will have moving forwards is convincing new players to buy into the game and retaining current players. With so many bugs to be fixed and the game not featuring the iconic World War II content that we're used to seeing, right now Battlefield 5 is a hard sell, and it's a hard sustain as well. The team behind the product need to show that they can put things right, and put up a future roadmap showing what gamers can really expect, and then maybe the community will grow. If things are left much longer without major fixes and content drops, the players are going to die off, just as they have done for countless previous titles that have been released in the Battlefield franchise. Thanks very much for watching today. Let me know what you think down below in the comments section. I am really interested to hear your thoughts. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications switched on so you don't miss any of my future content. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.